Welcome to Annapolis Mosaics. Our program spotlights people in our community who are involved in activities designed to promote good human relations. I am Michael Keller, the chair of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission and your host. The commission is a city board that seeks to promote equal opportunity and to eliminate discrimination. My guest today is Lisa Spicknall, who is the program manager for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Lisa, welcome to Annapolis Mosaics.
Thank you very much.
Well, could you tell our viewers about the history of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, also called MADD, a more commonly known acronym? How, when, and why did it get started?
Sure. Back in the early 80s, MADD was started by a mother whose daughter was killed by a drunk driver. It was also started here locally in Maryland by another mother, Cindy Lamb, whose daughter was critically injured and paralyzed by a drunk driver, Laura Lamb. And since then, we've been fighting very hard to protect our community from drunk driving and drunk driving crashes.
Mm-hmm. What is the extent of the problem, Lisa? I mean, how many people are injured or killed each year by drunk drivers, both nationally as well as in Maryland?
Nationally, there's about 13,000 drunk driving fatalities a year. 13,000. Last year here in Maryland, there was about 175 fatalities. Mm-hmm. Many more injuries. A lot of injuries don't get reported necessarily, mm-hmm. so it's a hard number to count. But there are quite a few injuries, not to mention property damage crashes, single vehicle crashes that may not necessarily get reported as drunk driving, as offenders flee the scene, things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty rampant problem, and it's one that we're hopefully looking to eliminate in the next, I'd say, 10 years.
Okay. Do you have any statistics for Anne Arundel County or the city of Annapolis, for example?
Not currently with me.
Okay.
I do have some, though. I do know, like I said, there were 174. I know Anne Arundel County, there are 4 counties in the state of Maryland that are high for drunk driving fatalities. Okay. Anne Arundel County is one of those 4.
Okay.
So we are focused to currently work hard with the police agencies to support our law enforcement officers to help them do their job with arresting drunk drivers.
MADD has a number of missions, and you outlined these on your website. And what I'm going to do in our interview is to talk about each one in turn and let you elaborate on them. One is obvious, it's stop drunk driving. And you've got something called a campaign to eliminate drunk driving. What's the components of that program? What does it consist of? What are you trying to do with that?
Sure. Our campaign to eliminate drunk driving is a 3-pronged campaign. Okay. The first prong is to support our law enforcement, obviously, support high visibility checkpoints, which checkpoints we've learned and have been proven that they reduce drunk driving. Simply a couple reasons. One, the drunk drivers know the checkpoints are there. They're not going to drive. They find other ways home. And it also gives law enforcement a little bit of morale knowing that people are there supporting them. Mm-hmm. The second prong to our campaign is to have ignition interlocks installed in every vehicle. Okay. Essentially, what we would do for first-time drunk driving offenders, whether they get a probation before judgment or a conviction, we would like to see them get an ignition interlock. Mm-hmm. It has been proven that ignition interlocks stop drunk drivers. They get in the car, they can't physically start the car if they've been drinking. That's the second prong. And the third prong is to completely eliminate drunk driving by having essentially an ignition interlock in every vehicle. Your vehicle, my vehicle, every vehicle throughout the country. And what that would do is, as you get in the car, it would read if you have any alcohol in your breath at all. And then the car wouldn't start if you're above the legal limit. So that's the 3 prongs of the campaign, and that's what our focus is looking to do.
Right. Another part of your mission is to support the victims of this crime. Could you share with our viewers information about your program of services to victims, including your hotline, both for victims and survivors?
Absolutely. We have a victim services program, and what we do is we support victims of impaired driving crashes, including drugs and alcohol now. We have 11 volunteer victim advocates through the state, and what they do is they work with victims to help them from any aspect, anything that they may need, as simple as sometimes things we don't think of, buying groceries, helping them just get on their feet to be able to go and do that, paying bills, figuring out how they can apply for criminal injuries compensation, which is a fund that helps pay for funeral expenses, hospital bills, things like that. We also go to court with victims, so we're able to sit there with them one-on-one and work them through the legal system. A lot of people don't realize when you're a victim of a type of crime like this, you've never necessarily been touched by the criminal justice process. So walking into a courtroom with the judge sitting up there and hearing the prosecutor and the defense attorney throwing out all their legalese terms, a lot of victims just have no concept of what is going on. So we're able to work with them and help them.
And another part of your mission, the third part of it, is an effort to reduce and prevent underage drinking.
Correct.
And you've got programs like Power Talk 21, Power of Parents, Power of Youth. Again, the focus being on working to reduce and hopefully eliminate illegal underage drinking by youth. Tell us about that.
Okay, our Power of Parents program is our largest underage drinking program. And what we do is we work with parents via a handbook to help them learn how to talk to their children about underage drinking. Talking to them about just conversation starters, how you can approach your child as opposed to kind of being over top of them and being judgmental, but stepping back and saying, hey, let's talk about this. Let's, what questions do you have for me? How can we work on this? Knowing the legal limit, knowing the age limit. Maryland has a zero tolerance policy for under 21, so your BAC should be 0.00. So that's our largest underage drinking program. It's very effective. It's a 30-minute workshop that parents can come in and sit through. And we have fantastic facilitators throughout the state who get up and just kind of teach them how to use the handbook.
The National Transportation Safety Board has endorsed setting the blood alcohol level at 0.05. Maryland is higher than that at 0.08, I believe. What does MADD think about the recommendation of the National Transportation Safety Board?
Currently, nationwide, 0.08 is the legal limit, and MADD supports whatever the legal limit is and is going to remain.
Okay. All right. How do Maryland's laws seeking to penalize drunk driving compare to those of other states?
Maryland's laws are a little lacking when it comes to drunk driving and vehicular manslaughter, which is the highest charge you can get for killing someone while drunk driving. Generally, when you kill someone drunk driving, the maximum penalty you can face is 10 years. The maximum penalty that we see people get for vehicular manslaughter is about 18 months. So there are other states that charge with felony homicide and different charges like that, and people are facing 30 to 50 years. So I think we're looking at a crime that victims step back and believe this is murder because you've murdered my loved one, but they're being treated lesser because it's still looked at as not a violent crime.
Do you think, or let me ask this question, have there been any recent changes in Maryland law, things that have occurred in Maryland law recently that you think our viewers should know about, that you think would be of note? And looking ahead to the upcoming General Assembly session, is there any legislation that MADD is proposing in terms of strengthening the state's laws, which you've just described as being below average?
In In the last year, there haven't been any changes from the General Assembly for any new laws. We're always looking at strengthening drunk driving laws. One of our biggest things is an all-offender ignition interlock law, which means if you're convicted with a PBJ or if you're convicted with an actual conviction, if you plead guilty, you're automatically required to put an ignition interlock in your car. Currently, what our law states is it's a high BAC law, which means a .15 or higher than you're required. So that's something that we're taking into consideration and working on and looking at.
Okay. What are some of the obstacles and roadblocks that MADD has experienced in terms of getting changes in the law, or changing public opinion, or what? What are some of your biggest challenges?
Sure. I think some of our biggest challenges are a lot of people still look at drunk driving instead of as a choice that's being made as an accident. They didn't mean to do it. They didn't mean to hurt anybody. And we, understandably so, when you set out in a vehicle, you never mean to kill somebody, but you also make that conscious choice to get in a car after you've been drinking and drive. I mean, it would be similar. I've heard a lot of police officers say, what's the difference between walking into a shopping mall with a loaded handgun and getting behind that car after you've been drinking? You wouldn't do the first.
Right.
So why do the second? So I think that's the biggest, getting public opinion to realize that it's a choice. You don't have to drink and drive. There's many other options. Call a cab, call a friend, call a parent, call a loved one. Somebody loves you enough to come and pick you up. So use those tools as opposed to making that choice. And that's, I think, one of the biggest obstacles that we face.
Who are some of your largest allies in your efforts?
Sure, absolutely. Some of our largest allies are the local police agencies. We work very closely with them. Some of our legislators are very, very good allies, very big supporters. AAA, Maryland's Highway Safety Foundation, Maryland Highway Safety Office, all big supporters of us, and as we are big supporters of them, all working towards the same cause, same goal. So.
We're going to take a break now, but when we return, I will be talking with Lisa in greater detail about the structure of MADD here in Maryland. I'm talking today with Lisa Spicknall, who is a program manager for Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or MADD, as its acronym is most commonly used. Lisa, how is MADD structured in Maryland, and to what extent does the organization make use of volunteers?
Okay. Our structure, we host one state office here in Maryland. We're located in Columbia.
Okay.
And we handle the entire state of Maryland.
All right.
We have an executive director, myself, we have our Power of Parents coordinator, we have a volunteer coordinator, and we have our victim advocate.
Okay.
So those are the 5 staff members in Maryland. We use volunteers in all capacities. We use volunteers as victim advocates. We use volunteers to help with our Walk Like MADD event that we do each and every year. They come out to help us set up, to help our victims have the best day possible. We host an annual Cookies for Cops campaign, which we bake cookies for 182 law enforcement agencies through the state of Maryland and deliver them. Just a little way of saying thank you. Yes. So we use volunteers in a lot of ways. We have volunteer court monitors that go and sit in the courts to just kind of monitor what's going on in court. Just about anything we can think of, we can use volunteers for. So,
how about your funding? Where do you derive your funding from?
Our funding mainly comes from our Walk Like MADD event, which is our largest fundraiser each year, donations from the community, and we host what's called victim impact panels. Our victim impact panels are generally for first-time drunk driving offenders, and what they do is they come in and hear how drunk driving has affected a panel of victims' lives. Very non-judgmental forum, very come in, kind of listen and learn session. But those are the 3 ways that we really fund our organization.
Okay. How did you personally get involved with with MADD?
Sure.
What led you to volunteer for this organization, which does excellent work and has for years in bringing to people's attention the real serious problem of drunk and impaired driving. But could you share with viewers a little bit, personally, what motivated you to get involved?
I've been a victim advocate for about 14 years now. I work directly with victims of, specifically for MADD, drunk driving crashes, impaired driving crashes, but I also have worked with victims of homicide, victims of all types of crime. MADD had an opening for an advocate, and my very, very dear friend, who is also MADD's national president, Jan Withers, her daughter was killed by a drunk driver. And she and I have been very close friends. She let me know that there was a position open, and I just kind of jumped on it.
Well, you expressed optimism that over the next 10 years that you can make even a greater difference, and MADD has made a lot of important contributions to increasing public awareness about this, eliminating the notion that it's sort of a socially accepted crime, strengthening the laws, empowering the police and prosecutors to crack down on this. And if you look at one organization within the United States that has really had an impact on this, it's been MADD. And you're optimistic that you can even make more strides over the next 10 years. Where would you like to see the organization be in 10 years? What would you like to see the status of the laws be in 10 years? What is the basis for your rosy outlook, Lisa?
To be completely honest, I'd like to see us not have an organization in 10 years. I would like to see that drunk driving is being completely eliminated and that there's no need for a MADD organization to support victims. Do I think that's going to happen realistically? Probably not. But I do think we're taking great strides to educate children, to educate their parents, to really get in there and ingrain in society that drunk driving is not acceptable, and that we really need to step up as a grassroots organization. Get everybody together, get everybody empowered and say, we're not going to tolerate this anymore, and really start there. I think with our ignition interlock bills coming about and more people realizing that there are ways to prevent drunk driving, that when we're finally able to get the interlock, for lack of a better terms, into each and every vehicle, we're going to see a big drop in drunk driving because you're just not going to be able to do it anymore. So I think once that starts to happen, and I really think we're making great strides with that, we're really at a point where we're looking at two very specific options in that, and that we're going to see them come to fruition. So I'm very positive and very optimistic that this is going to happen and that my children aren't going to have to worry about this.
Does MADD work at all in the area of drug-impaired driving? As a society, we're moving toward the increased acceptance of the use of marijuana. Many states, large numbers of states have, and municipalities have decriminalized it. In some states, it's now legal for its use. There's going to be referenda in a number of states that are going to allow its use. Probably Maryland is going to be on the proverbial bandwagon in this area. And of course, the use of drugs like marijuana will have the same impact, it would seem to me, as the use of alcohol. It basically impairs your senses. It slows your reaction time. So do you envision MADD sort of expanding into this area as well as the laws begin to change and focus on not only alcohol as a cause for vehicular homicide, but also the use of what may be legalized drugs?
Right. I think right now, currently, our biggest focus is we do support victims of drug-impaired driving.
Right.
And I think as it starts to flesh out a little bit more, it's something that MADD's going to seriously have to take a look at and see what our stance is going to be on that. My understanding currently is that there's no limit of impairment for drug driving, and that's something that would have to be a national standard that's set. So I think until that happens, it's something that we're just going to kind of keep an eye on and see where we stand and what's going to come out of it.
Could you share with our viewers some examples of some really heart-rending cases of individuals or families who have been affected by drunken drivers? People look at statistics, but statistics can be something that are difficult for people to fathom. I mean, you can talk about the, tens of thousands of people, for example, who are hurt or killed nationally by drunken drivers, or the 100-some that are in the state of Maryland. But they're statistics, Lisa, they're statistics. I think people would relate even more, and do relate more, when they hear of specific cases of individuals whose lives have been torn asunder by the irresponsible behavior of adults and in some cases young people. Do you have anything that
every single
that you can
case
share?
that I work with, every case that I've worked with throughout the 14 years that I've done advocacy has been heart-wrenching. Whenever there's a loss, whenever someone's life, and what a lot of people don't realize, it's not just a single family that's changed when a death occurs due to drunk driving. It's an entire community. I mean, you see young kids that are killed and their entire school is affected. You have high school students out driving down the road doing nothing wrong that are hit and killed by drunk drivers, and it affects an entire community. You have sole breadwinners in families, fathers, mothers that are killed, and this whole family, this entire family and community is devastated over this loss. I mentioned earlier Jan Withers, who's our national president. Her daughter Alyssa was 15 years old when she was killed. She was out with some friends. The driver of the vehicle had consumed alcohol, liked to speed, went to speed around a corner, and hit a guardrail. When he hit the guardrail, Alyssa was ripped from the car. Her injuries were horribly traumatic. And to see how much her mother has fought through life and come back and really made a focus with this crime to prevent this has really been very uplifting. But not all families are that way. There are families that don't come back from this. There are families that, mothers who can't get out of bed, fathers who are totally different from the loss of a child, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a parent. It affects everybody. It doesn't just affect, you think of drunk driving and you think, that only happens to a certain type of person. It happens to everybody. It really affects us as a community as a whole. And I think when it affects your community and you really see it is when you really step up and take action. And the only thing that I would ask is, instead of sitting back and waiting for it to affect your community, step up and take action now and prevent it from happening in your community.
It's a really powerful statement, Lisa. If you put together a profile of what the typical drunk driving offender looks like, what would it resemble? Younger or older?
Walk down the street and look at every single person standing around you. And that's a typical profile of a drunk driving offender. There is no young, old, black, white, orange, brown. It's every single person that walks down the street. I host a victim impact panel, and we see about 180 people a month. And it's every single walk of life. There's no one that's left out. I've had 85-year-old people to 17-year-olds all in the same meeting. It affects everybody. And you never know when you walk down that street if that person walking next to you could be the same person in 5 hours that hits and kills you.
One of the things that I think people really focus on are youth. Because you read of cases in which there's young people involved, and you've talked a little bit about dealing with underage drinking. But of course, there's so much peer pressure that goes on with younger people, and they like to party and the such. What what message would you have today using this vehicle of this program? What message would you want to relate to young people and to their parents about the seriousness of drunk driving?
Absolutely. Drunk driving changes your life. It is a conviction, and if you kill someone, it's a felony conviction. It takes away many, many opportunities that you could have in life that you no longer have accessible to you. It's simple, just don't do it. You know, if you get caught, you can lose scholarship money, you can lose spots on recreation sports teams, you can lose many, many opportunities that are out there. You know, I have 2 boys, 11 and 8. I talk to them each and every day about not drinking, about what the age limits are, what the laws are, what you should and shouldn't do. Not to get into a car with someone that's been drinking. Mm-hmm. Make that choice. Pick up that phone, call me, and I will come and get you. And that's what I say, you know. Ultimately, we always tell our kids, don't drink.
If individuals are interested in getting in touch
Mm-hmm.
with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, if they're interested in volunteering, if they're interested in contributing,
Sure.
How can they reach you, Lisa?
Absolutely. They can reach us locally at 410-964-5757.
Could you repeat that number, please?
Absolutely. 410-964-5757. Or they can visit www.madd.org.
Okay, could you repeat the website
Sure.
again?
It's www.madd.org.
Thank you for viewing our program today, and please join us again on Annapolis Mosaics. If you would like more information about the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, please jot down the information on your screen. You can reach us at 410-263-7998 or by email at hrcommission@annapolis.gov, or check out our page at the City of Annapolis website. Go to www.annapolis.gov, click on City Government, then Boards and Commissions, and you can scroll down to the Human Relations Commission page. And always remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We have flown the air like birds and swum the seas like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth as brothers and sisters."